Wildcats won their season opener for the third straight year against a top 10 opponent.
But the Wildcats aren't in Kansas anymore. They go to Northeastern State tonight in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. We'll look back to last week's game with some highlights and preview the game against the Riverhawks. It's the Chris Thomsen Show next. Welcome to week 2 of the Chris Thomsen Show. Grant Boone along with senior broadcast major Brandon Tripp and the head coach of the ACU Wildcats, Chris Thomsen. Big win on the road last week in the season opener, 34-26 over the Washburn Ichabods in Topeka. Coach, third straight year you've opened against an MIAA opponent. What'd you think of those Ichabods? I have a feeling they're going to win their share of games this year.
Yeah, I think so. They were what we thought they would be, a tough physical team. They played good run defense. You know, their quarterback and their running backs were what we thought they would be, and I thought they had an excellent team. I think they'll do well as the season goes.
Coach, big step up from the offense from last year. Talk about your impressions from what you saw from Mitchell, from Edmond, from Darrell in his first game as the full-time starter.
Well, the biggest thing was just consistency. We had seen that with Mitchell throughout the first couple of weeks of training camp, and just needed to see that carry over to the game. And then, really the key difference was hitting some deep balls. I mean, we struggled in that area last year, probably cost us a couple of games down the stretch, so it was good to see those two guys hook up, and that was really the difference in the game.
All right, ACU now 1-0 on this young season. When we come back, Brandon will look back at the highlights from that 34-26 victory over Washburn, and we'll have analysis of the game as well. You're watching The Chris Thomsen Show.
Here at the ACU Campus Store, you'll find all the supplies you need for class, from pens and pencils, binders, and even art supplies. We also have the latest and greatest in Macs and iPads. Don't forget to check out our large selection of iPhone and iPod cases. Plus, we carry the largest selection of Champion and Under Armour apparel in Abilene. So come by, support your Wildcats, and get your purple on.
Welcome back to the Chris Thomsen Show. Last Saturday night in Topeka, Kansas, ACU took on Washburn, the first ever meeting between those two schools, and a top 10 matchup to boot. Brandon Tripp looks back at that big 34-26 Wildcat victory.
The Wildcats opened their season against a top 10 opponent from the MIAA again. This time, the Washburn Ichabods looking to ruin ACU's season opener. Things looked to be going good for ACU at the start when Darrell Cantu Harkless returned the opening kickoff 48 yards to put the Wildcats in excellent field position. But the ACU offense stalled inside Washburn territory, and Morgan Lineberry missed his first field goal attempt of the season as the Wildcats came up empty. Washburn took advantage and drove into ACU's side of the field. The Wildcats defense looked to hold, but James Williams made contact with the Washburn receiver in the end zone and was called for the pass interference. It took the Ichabods just 3 plays to put it into the end zone on a 1-yard run by Vershawn Moore. On the ensuing kickoff, Cantu Harkless was at it again, taking the kick the opposite side of the field and down the sideline for a 93-yard kickoff return, the longest non-scoring return in ACU's history. Morgan Lineberry would not miss again after the offense stalled on 3 straight plays inside the 10, pulling the gap 6-3. The end of the quarter we go, and it's Dan Semino to Joe Hastings for the first down, and the Ichabods were at it again. But 4 plays into the second quarter, Semino tries to force the pass by safety Darian Williams, who was having none of it, picking off the pass and killing Washburn's drive. Later in the quarter, ACU finally started putting together a drive, and Mitchell Gale found his favorite target, Edmund Gates, with the sliding catch for the first down. And then Daryl Richardson, in his first game as the featured starter, takes the ball around the end, avoids the ankle tackle, and takes it to the house on the 27-yard touchdown run. Gates and Gale would hook up towards the end of the first half, and with just 1 minute and 12 seconds on the clock, Semino found Cameron Knox at the ACU 5-yard line to give the Ichabods a chance to score at the end of the half. 3 plays later, Semino found Hastings on the outline in the corner of the end zone. Halfway into the second half, the Wildcats were looking to add to the 17-12 lead, and it was Gale to Gates again for the big first down. Gates would finish with 5 catches, 138 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Later in the drive, it's Daryl Richardson with some tough running to push the ball inside the Washburn 5. Next play, Gale finds Emery Dudensing, the fullback, on the sideline for the score. ACU up 24-12. Washburn answered fast. Semino to Hastings again for the touchdown. This time a 44-yard strike. Hastings finished with 7 catches for 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. In the fourth quarter, ACU looking to put the Ichabods away, and Gale to Gates for the second time to give the Wildcats the 34-19 lead. Washburn added 1 more score at the end, but it was not enough, and ACU walked away with the season-opening victory for the 3rd straight season.
So ACU goes to 1-0. Washburn falls to 1-1. Coach, as we talk about that big season-opening victory, let's start at the very first kickoff. Daryl Cantu Harkless, a 5'7" redshirt freshman from Austin Crockett High School. You look at his high school bio, the guy did a little bit of everything, and he did something big for you there, starting off the game and then as the game went on with those kick returns.
Yeah, he's a really versatile guy and a really intelligent kid. He's learned, been in the secondary a little bit, actually played in the secondary in the spring. We moved him over, started him out at receiver in training camp, and then when Reggie got hurt, we moved him to running back. Which speaks to his intelligence to be able to pick all those up so quickly. And then in the return game, he does it exactly like you tell him to do it. He's got a feel and a good knack for where he's going, and made a couple of huge plays for us.
Now, he had some help on those kick returns. It is always a team effort, especially on something like a kickoff return. Talk about the blocking that he had.
Yeah, well, you know, our off returner, Caleb Withrow, who didn't get the ball, did a great job. And then guys like Nate Baggs, who are veteran players, and then Nate Bailey, who's an incoming transfer, was playing on the other side with Richard Havens. They both had key blocks. Thor Warner, several of those guys, Ben and Emery, did a great job getting those blocks set up. 93-yard kickoff return later in that half, the longest non-scoring kickoff return in ACU history, and it led eventually to a field goal. Can you tell when someone is going to be a special player in kick returns? Does it take something unusual besides just being a good athlete? I think you got to have a little feel for it. I talked to Sam McElroy, who's now at Texas Tech, who used to be the head coach at Tarleton when he had Nate Robinson, you know, and I said, you know, you saw what Nate did, and he said, yeah. He said Nate just had a great knack and a great feel, and I really think there is something to that. You know, all 3 of our guys that are in the NFL have at least 1 kickoff return for a touchdown, and you can just kind of tell. Of course, you know, Bernard and Johnny didn't really do it when they were here, and everybody tells me how stupid I was for not putting them back there. But you can kind of see when a guy has a knack and mostly it's just not having any fear. I mean, you know, the guys that run up in there and then start shuffling their feet and looking for a place to get out of there. I mean, that's a guy who doesn't want to do it. A guy who will fearlessly just hit that thing and trust his blocking. You know, you got a guy like that, you know you got something special. Now,
Daryl did that, and he took some punishment on one of his kick returns, but isn't that an example of what you're saying? You have to have no fear.
Yeah, and that one was a short kick, and we were unable to get over to number 1 because our off returner was coming from the other side of the field. And Daryl tried to set him up and make a move, and the kid didn't go for it, and he hit him right in the head. I mean, his chin was split at the half, and he was a little bit dizzy, and I said, you going to be able to go? And he said, oh, heck yeah, I'm good, you know, so. But he took quite a shot. You could hear it on our sideline.
Well, we know what kind of offense that Washburn has. They rolled up 600-plus yards in their season opener against Colorado School of the Mines, and they had some good plays against your team. In fact, they went for 442 yards of total offense. They led 6-0 and then 6-3 and were driving when one of your new additions made one of the real momentum-changing plays of the game. Darian Williams, a safety, with an interception. How big was that in terms of stemming that Ichabod tide that was going in the first half?
Well, it was huge. Momentum's such a huge part of football, the emotional aspect of it, and they were kind of taking control of the game at that point and establishing some things on our defense. And Darian really kind of saw what the quarterback was doing, trying to work back to the vertical route inside on the backside over there, and just kind of read his eyes and stepped up and made a huge instinctive play, and then had a 31-yard return, swung the field position drastically, and that was a huge play in the game.
You guys go down, you score, you take the lead 10-6, and then on the next possession, Kevin Washington, a sack. It wasn't from the blind side, but clearly Semino, the quarterback, was looking to his left. Kevin came from the quarterback's right, and I don't know that he ever saw him. He got a good face full of him when Kevin planted him, forced the fumble. Mike Jones fell on it. The next play, you hit Edmund Gates over the top of the big touchdown. Kevin really didn't have much time to get ready for last season. He came on slowly. You started him out slowly, but he clearly is in a different position this year.
Yeah, and that particular play, Washburn went to an empty set, no backs in the backfield. We had an automatic check to that. Our defensive staff did a great job of getting that ready, and then the players, Kevin getting them in position to make that play and forcing a fumble. And what was interesting about that play, last year Kevin had a sack against West Texas like that, where really he kind of led through with the helmet. And we've talked about, not necessarily leading with the helmet, but make a play on the ball, get the ball out. And that was what the difference was. He kind of stuck his hand in there before he hit him and jarred the ball loose, and big Mike Jones came out of there and was pretty fired up to get that ball.
In fact, Harris of West Texas held on to the ball. They converted a third down after that play.
Third and 18 maybe. So,
yeah,
that's the maturation of a guy like Kevin, not only getting us in the right blitz check, but also now executing, getting the football out. Because if you don't get the ball out, they probably end up punting on the other end of the field. It's just a huge momentum swing.
Coach, 3 turnovers for Washburn, 0 turnovers for your offense or special teams. Mitchell Gale, 24 of 30, 247 yards and 3 touchdowns. You and I were talking earlier this week. He hit Edmund Gates over the top with a deep ball 1 time last year in 8 games. He hit him twice with deep balls in that game over Washburn. That had to look good from where you were standing.
It was great, and the first one wasn't a perfectly thrown ball. It was actually a little bit over Edmund's outside shoulder, which they've worked hard all summer just on making the deep throw and adjusting to the deep ball, because the deep ball is such a low percentage pass, it's probably not going to be right on the money, even though the second one was. But you have to adjust to those footballs, and man, it was great to see those 2 guys hook up.
A very efficient output by your offensive unit. Got outgained by 100 yards, but no mistakes and only 2 sacks given up as well. Okay, when we come back, Brandon Tripp will have our latest edition of Washington's Post and more from around the world of ACU sports. This is The Chris Thomsen Show.
Here at the ACU Campus Store, you'll find all the supplies you need for class, from pens and pencils, binders, and even art supplies. We also have the latest and greatest in Macs and iPads. Don't forget to check out our large selection of iPhone and iPod cases. Plus, we carry the largest selection of Champion and Under Armour apparel in Abilene. So come by, support your Wildcats, and get your purple on.
Welcome back to the Chris Thomsen Show. Coaches talk about it all the time, having the ability to forget a big win or a big loss and move on to the next game. This week, Kevin Washington gives us a look into how players view game-to-game amnesia in this week's Washington's Post.
Oh, snap, what up, Duty?
What's up, man?
Hey, man, that was a great touchdown you had on Saturday. It was great, the pass, and you caught it in the end zone. And
What are you talking about, dude? Talking about practice yesterday? Or like getting ready for Northeastern?
No, dude, Northeastern. No, Saturday, Washburn. We just played them.
No, dude, I'm ready for Northeastern this week, man.
Are you sick?
Yeah.
Dude, that was a good catch, though. I don't know
what you're talking about, man. I'm moving on, man. That's this week, Northeastern.
Are you sick? Whatever, Duty. Yo, Darren, what's up, man? Oh, you got the shake in there? You got finished working out?
What's up, bro?
I got you. Hey, yo, that was a tight pick you had on Saturday last week.
What you talking about, man?
Man, the pick, remember we was down there, it was in our territory, and then you picked it, and then we turned the ball over, all that good stuff?
Man, all that really is old news, man. All I'm worried about is Northeastern, bro.
But that was a good,
to be honest.
you gotta admit, that was a tight pick, though.
Man, I got to go watch the film and look at it. I don't even remember. I'm so focused on Northeastern. It's crazy, man.
Man.
It's time to go, baby.
Let's see what else we got. Daryl, what up, Harkless? How you doing, man?
Good.
Yo, dude, that was a great kickoff return you had last week. You just bust on the scene. Ain't know what to expect from you. That was a real good run back, though.
What are you talking about?
Dude, the kickoff return you had like 3 of them. I mean, you had some real good ones last weekend, though.
Nah, man, I don't know. I'm thinking about this week, though, what we got to do this week.
I mean, that's cool, but last week was real good, though.
I mean, if I knew what you're talking about, that's cool and all, but
you gotta be
something better has to happen next week. That's all I know.
All right, forget it, man. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
No, I promise you that our guys did not hit anybody hard enough to forget a whole weekend. But that's kind of what we do. We have what we call game-to-game amnesia. We don't really think back about the past and what we did, regardless of how big a win or how great a win it was, because we have to think about the other team. Like you saw a quick glimpse on there, we have new scouting reports on there. These scouting reports are pretty in-depth. We have a lot of pages. We learn their formations, we learn their personnel, we learn who does what and when they do what out of what formations. We have to know what they're going to do before they know what they're going to do, and then delete what we learned about the other team last week so we know only this team this week. It gets kind of confusing, so we make sure that we don't try to relive how good or how bad we might have done things last weekend, because we have to move on to this weekend. So those guys weren't just acting like amnesia because they got really hard hit, but unfortunately, but they're trying to make sure we have the best chance to win next weekend, so they're trying to forget about the past stuff. One thing I will tell you though, coaches definitely remember if you do something wrong, which we don't do too much of, so that's a good thing. This is Kevin Washington on Washington's Post. See you next week.
Thanks, Kevin. And now for a look at the rest of the ACU sports landscape, let's go on up to the JMC Network studios with Austin and Kristen.
Hey, sports fans, and welcome back to the JMC Network Sportscast. I'm Austin Gwynn.
And I'm Kristen Goodspeed. We are back for another exciting weekly look into ACU sports on and off the field. Moving to the soccer field, the Lady Wildcats started their season off with back-to-back wins. They shut down the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs with a 3-0 victory in their season opener. The girls followed it up with a 2-0 shutout at Colorado State Pueblo. Goalie Elliott London led the way for ACU on defense with 4 saves. Tuesday's game against Hardin-Simmons was canceled due to bad weather and will be made up at a date to be determined.
The volleyball team came back from their road trip to Colorado with a couple of wins and a couple of losses. In a tournament hosted by Colorado School of Mines, the Wildcats suffered losses to both Fort Lewis College and Regis College, but beat Slippery Rock University and Mesa State College. According to Coach Mock, Mesa State was the best team ACU faced in the tourney, and a win against them was a major step in the right direction. Throughout the weekend, some familiar faces, E.J. Moranu and Jenny Hutt, posted big numbers. ACU also saw a lot of production from some freshmen. Both Neely Borger and Madeline Robinette were playing in their first collegiate tournament, but didn't show it as they stepped up and were a factor in the Wildcats' 2 wins. ACU will travel to Austin next weekend for a tournament down at St. Edwards.
The men's cross-country team backed up their selection as the preseason favorite to win the Lone Star Conference for the 20th year in a row, finishing second only to Baylor at the Baylor Bears Twilight Invitational. Amos Sang led the way with a first-place finish, running the course in 18 minutes and 18 seconds, and Cleophas Tanui finished third, just 25 seconds behind Sang. On the women's side, Anaya Spiladant led the Cats, finishing in 20th with a time of 15 minutes 15 seconds, while Chloe Susset finished 24th. For the JMC Network, I'm Kristen Goodspeed.
And I'm Austin Gwynn. May the sports be with you.
Thanks, guys. He keeps ACU players healthy when he can and gets them back on the field as fast as he can. Ryan Cantrell gives us a look into ACU's head trainer, Corey Driscoll.
My name is Corey Driscoll. I'm the head athletic trainer here at Abilene Christian University. A typical day for us, usually getting here at 7 a.m. in the morning, doing treatment on the guys before they get going to class, and then trying to schedule some of those guys to come back in their breaks in the morning and try to get some of our paperwork and stuff done like that in the morning. And then come back after lunch usually is time to do a little bit of pre-practice treatment, getting guys heated up, stretched out, warmed up, ready to go for practice, do all the taping and bracing needs that they need to use to get through practice. This job is a lot like a coaching position, but has a little bit more of a medical aspect of it, and I think that's kind of what drew me to the profession. I grew up loving sports, grew up playing sports. Wanted to be a coach, but also wanted to do a little bit more on the medical side of it. So it's a very rewarding job. If you have a athlete that has had an injury and you get to be a part of every aspect of their rehab, of getting them back to playing on the field, and then you get to see them perform well on the field, it's very rewarding. And that's what's fun about our job, and just to be around the team and have all that team aspect and team feel to it. Is a great feeling.
When we come back on the Chris Thomsen Show, we'll take a look at ACU's next opponent, Northeastern State, and take a look at some of the other big games going on in the LSC. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Chris Thomsen Show. Take a look at the Week 1 scoreboard in the Lone Star Conference. 3 South Division teams in the LSC were in top 15 battles. You see there, Texas A&M Kingsville with a big victory over Northwest Missouri State. Coach, we know how good the Bearcats are. What does that say about the Javelinas that they could go up to Maryville and come away with a victory?
Well, what really impressed me the most was just knowing how good Northwest is on offense, and they have all those starters back pretty much from last year. And Kingsville goes in there to hold them to 7 points. They must have a great defense down in Kingsville this year.
And let's talk about that nationally televised game. You guys played last year on national television. West Texas A&M went up to Lubber Stadium, took on really the team of the decade in the 2000s, Grand Valley State, and really gave the Lakers everything they could handle before losing by 3.
Yeah, they did a great job up there. We got to see the fourth quarter on TV, and you know, those Grand Valley has a great team. You can tell that, and obviously West Texas was right there at the end, and if they don't have the 5 turnovers, they probably win. So West Texas has a great team as well.
And then some other close games in the South Division last week. You had Angelo State with a 3-point win over Eastern New Mexico. And then how about Northeastern State, this week's opponent, 31-23 winners in Stephenville against Tarleton State.
Yeah, Northeastern State goes in and makes a huge statement. First victory over a South team in a long time, and got to go right in there this week and face a tough opponent. We're excited about that challenge.
All right, let's talk about Northeastern State, this week's opponent, Coach. Again, 31-23. They beat one purple team last week. They get another purple team coming into their house this time. And you will see again a guy that when you last saw him, you said to me you were glad that he was gone. Nate Robinson. He played for Tarleton a few years ago and had a good game against you guys in that crazy 70-63 game. He's back now for Northeastern State, and he had a huge hand in that victory from the Riverhawks the other night at Tarleton.
Yeah, I think Tarleton had cut the lead, maybe tied the game or cut it to 1 or 2, and Nate did the same thing he did to us in 07. You know, we caught him on about the 5, fortunately, but they scored a couple plays later. But he's an impact player. He's a great player. He's also a really good corner, so you have to watch him there. He's got great ball skills, can take a ball the other way. So we know all about him, and we'll hopefully be ready for that guy. He's really good.
Coach, talk about what your defensive backs are going to have to do this week to step up. The Riverhawks have a couple of all LSC North receivers in Ben Randall and Trey McVeigh. Just talk about what they have to do this week.
Well, you know, we got to shore some things up. We were a little bit had some confusion last week, which with as many new faces as we have, you know, that's a little bit understandable. And we gave up a couple of big plays because of it. We can't do that this week. We've got to be in position. We've got to tackle. Those guys they're in the Kendrick Johnson mold. They can break a tackle or make a move and go the distance. So we got to line up right. Got to get our eyes in the right spot and just execute and take another step in the development of that secondary.
Coach, this year with the addition of Incarnate Word, it gives each division 7 teams, which means every game you play against a conference opponent counts in the conference standings. There were some games in previous years you might play that wouldn't count even if you were playing a conference opponent. So tonight's game against the Riverhawks is huge. It's your first conference game of the year.
Yeah, it really is. In the past, that first one typically didn't count against you in the standings. This one does, and it just forces you to – the preparation's got to be even greater. The level of execution and the urgency that you take into the game's got to be even greater if you want to be a conference champion. It's 10 straight now, so you got to really focus.
One final thought here, just thinking, this is the first time you've played Northeastern State since 2007. They have a new coach since then. Is it more difficult to prepare for a team you hadn't played in a while?
Not really, because we'll get the same amount of tape that we normally would. We've got one game, the Tarleton game on them, and they've got the Washburn game on us, and that's it. Personnel-wise, you're not quite as familiar, you know, because most of those faces that we played in 07 are gone on both sides for them too. But that's the only thing that would change. When you play somebody every year, you kind of know the personnel and know how to prepare, so a little bit of difference there.
And finally, Josh Perez injured in the first half against Washburn last Saturday. His prognosis for tonight and the next few weeks.
Yeah, Josh won't play tonight. Still a little bit stiff and a little bit sore, strained MCL in his knee, and we hope to have him back for the East Central game.
And what does that mean for the rest of your offensive line unit?
Well, he got hurt in the first quarter, so Dylan Blunt came in, transferred out of Kilgore College, and did a great job. Kept operating pretty smooth with Dylan, and I think he'll only get better. Funny because I told Dylan that week, we consider you a starter. You're right now our 6th guy going in, but we consider you a starter type player. And he went in and showed that and showed the depth that we have on the O-line.
All right, Coach, tonight, ACU and Northeastern State, 7 o'clock kickoff. We'll have the pregame show on local radio in Abilene, Mix 92.5 FM at 6:30. For Brandon Tripp and for the coach, Chris Thomsen, I'm Grant Boone. Thanks for watching The Chris Thomsen Show. We'll see you next week.